I have a watch on the channel today which I find visually very interesting. You see, in my eyes, the design of this harkens back to the 60s and a bit of the 70s. A time when manufacturers were really experimenting with case shapes, different features to put on the watch and on the dial, and in this case it says anti-magnetic. Now this is a pretty watch with hidden beauty, however I feel it's also really limiting itself in one area for the smaller wrist guy, and that is wearability, which I'll show you guys. Let's check this out. Now on surface deep, this might look just like a standard looking watch. And if you just have a quick glance, you'd be right. But that said, there are some design elements here which totally separate this watch from many other micro brands. And in that regard, I think they've done very well. One of the first things that caught my attention was the actual box in which this watch was supplied. It's a box within a box within a box. It's pretty cool, it's minimalist, and it's very different. Now if you're after a watch that looks different and wears different, this is pretty schmick. But as I mentioned, it's also one of its weak points when it comes to smaller wristed guys. Now this video is sponsored by Monbrey. I don't have to send this watch back, so I will of course leave all the links in the description section for you guys to check them out. Now if I turn my attention to the specs of this watch, the case diameter is 38.4 with a lug-to-lug of 46.8. The height to the top of that box dome sapphire crystal is 12.2 with a lug width of 20. Now the crown is a 5.3mm signed screw down crown. The watch offers 50 meters of water resistance. And the total weight on this specific bracelet, sized to my 18cm wrist, I measured exactly 133 grams. On the wrist, this watch wears unusual. Those lugs are very striking. And although the watch comes with 2 leather straps, I've actually experimented throughout the week mostly with this bracelet. But I have interchanged between the two just to see its wearing experience and its overall look. Visually, I think this watch is doing a really nice job because it's very, very different. Those lugs are extended. They're only 46.8mm, however, on the bracelet with those end links, it actually extends the lug-to-lug to 51.5, so bear that in mind. Now the height of the watch is lovely. It's only 12.2, in fact the case is thin, that box sapphire crystal is taken up about 2mm, so it's sitting well. There's a taper on that bracelet from 20mm down to 16 at that clasp. It's been a real joy. And speaking of that bracelet, if you look at the integration of those end links, when you bend them straight down, you can see there's an extension of the actual lug-to-lug. The articulation though is wonderful. The bracelet features pin and collar system, a fully milled swivel and clasp with an on-the-fly adjustment, and the experience has been very good. Albeit the external of the bracelet, just here on the links, it feels a little bit sharp, however on the inside it's beautifully smooth. So I believe it's part of the design choice and it matches the hard angular shapes of those lugs. Now the leather straps are quite good, and I actually like the spring bars on all the straps as I mentioned. Appropriately, none of them displayed any sort of magnetism, as the script on that dial also suggests. And speaking of magnetism, if we turn the watch over, you can see you got a black DLC case cover. And behind that cover is a Faraday cage that's shielding the no date Miyota 9039. And that movement has been running absolutely flatline on the time grapher. So to me it was a surprise. It's actually very well regulated. And in the watch's usage, simple, unscrew the crown, pops. First one, you can see we've hacked the movement. We can adjust the time. Away you go. What I do like about this watch is the latch down experience. It's very nice and smooth. Latches on beautifully, albeit that crown could have been a little bit bigger. Next, you've noticed the glass on this watch. It's a box dome sapphire crystal. I think it's appropriate. It's really doing a good job. The AR coating has been good, and I've actually enjoyed the look through that glass. And lastly, before I get on to any gripes, the lume. There is none. So I think the watch is catered more towards a dressy style piece, more so than a sports watch, and a very unusual dressy piece at that. Now looking at their website, the price of the watch comes in at $519 with the leather straps included, and for that bracelet it bumps that up to $599. And on that note, what are my gripes of this watch? And number one, put that case shape aside. Some might find the dial layout relatively uninteresting or boring. But that said, I really like the fact that this has a high gloss black dial, which somewhat reminds me of the first generation Omega Cortera I had years ago. Very, very good depth, especially with that high polished handset and applied indices. Second gripe, the wearability is a little bit awkward. It looks great, it looks funky, but smaller wrists will over accentuate the look of those straight lugs and potential overhang from the wrist. Third gripe, the crown. It is a tad small. It's perfect in its screw down experience, but my suggestion, potentially a slightly larger crown, or even better, maybe harsher knurling, just to make it a bit more grippy. And my last gripe of this watch may be the addition of some lume. Although instead of a sports watch, it's maybe geared more towards a dressier style watch. And one more gripe, the watch does offer 50 meters of water resistance. It does have a screw down crown. I don't see why they couldn't really push that up to 100, but just would have made it a more versatile piece in water activities. But put all that aside, this is the first microbrand watch I have received on the channel ever, where the spring bars are not magnetized, the watch case itself shows zero magnetism when I pass a compass over it. The accuracy is superb, the screw down experience and ease of use, I liken it to much more expensive Swiss watch brands. It's really good in its usage. You've got good depth in that gloss dial, excellent comfort on that bracelet with its on-the-fly clasp and well-sized link. So I think overall, a very different watch. Surface deep, it might not look that much, but getting into the details and that case shape and its wearing experience, it's actually been an enjoyable piece. Let me know your thoughts on this watch. Quite interesting and different, and sometimes different is not good, but I think in this case, pun intended, it's offering something unique both in its visual appearance and its physical wearing stance on the wrist. I think the bigger the wrist, the better this watch looks. But I can't also help to think that if they offered it in a slightly smaller size, say a 36mm, it would find pleasure on so many smaller wrists and a bigger audience. Thanks for watching, guys. If you haven't already subscribed, I encourage you to hit that like and subscribe button, as it really does help this channel to grow. Enjoy the watch that's on your wrist, enjoy this hobby, and we'll see you all in the next one.